In this episode, we discuss turnouts, and when you hear somebody say a number 5 or number 7 or number 10, we kind of go through that and kind of explain that for you, and then we give you an update on the Kansas City Southern Iowa Eastern Division, and we have a couple announcements on this episode as well. So stick around because we're going to get this show on the tracks. Welcome back, my friends, episode 94. And we are going to, as we stated in the intro, we are going to be talking about model railroad turnout switches, changing track devices, whatever you want to call them. As in, it was brought up. I had an email from one of our longtime listeners, Steve L. He had mentioned something about doing a talking about turnouts and the angles at which they diverge, right? Because you hear the numbers and stuff like that. So we're gonna talk about that here shortly. But first, I would like to say thank you to Scott from Scott's Trains. He had sent me some of his pipe loads that he makes and sells, I should say, as well. And he sent them to me to put on my layout. I've got them on some flat cars, or I got a set on a bulkhead flat car. I got some on on a flat car, and then I got a couple loads in gondolas. And let me tell you, they look amazing. He has different size pipe loads. So I would, if you are interested, he has pictures. He'd be more than happy to send you. And at some point, I will be showing them on our YouTube channel. So by the time you hear this, it may be out. But also, I'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, if you're interested in that, or if you're looking for specific rail cars or anything like that, this guy, Scott, we've become friends now. He is actually very good. He is a purchaser and reseller of model railroad equipment. So you reach out to him, Scott Love 57. That's number 57 at gmail.com. Or you can find him on Facebook in the online model train show. He is a admin, or I don't know exactly. I know he's one of the higher ups in that group. So, but look for him. Thank you, Scott, for sending me those pipe loads. They look amazing, and keep up the good work on that. Number 2, when you hear this episode comes out, I will be in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I will be at a train show. So if you happen to be in that area, it's going to be at the Lincoln Area Railway Historical Society 2025 train show. Sand Hills Global Event Center is where it's going to be at. That's at 4100 North 84th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. And the show hours are Saturday, which will be today when you're listening to it, February 15th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is $7, cash or card. Kids 12 and under are free with a paid adult. If you are interested in this and you're in the area, you can always go to the larhs.org, which is their website for the Lincoln Area Railway Historical Society, and find out more information. So if you happen to be in that area, passing through, whatever, swing in, say hi. I will be back in the large scale area with our good friend Eric. He asked me to be there because he's debuting his 1-inch scale GP60M. I I've 3D printed some of the detail parts on his locomotive, and he asked if I would be there. So not only will I be there for him, I will be there if you're a follower, listener, or whatever, and you'd like to swing on by. I'll have some stickers and some cards, and but yeah, swing on by and say hi. Would love to get a photo with you and chat with you. So, anyways, moving forward, we like we said, turnouts, switches, track changing control devices, whatever you want to call them. Steve L had sent us an email, like we stated, asking or suggesting, I should say, that we do an episode, or at least part of an episode, talking about the differences. A lot of times you hear when you hear people talking about turnouts, you'll hear them say like number 4, number 6, number 8, number 5, number 7, number 10. What does that mean? And speaking in that, I guess, those terms, um, those numbers are, so for turnouts, there's two different ways, I guess, let's do it this way. There's two different ways they are measured. Let's put it that way. You've got curve turnouts that are done based off of their curve radius. So the inner track and the outer track. Okay. So, or the through track or the diverging route. Okay. You can get turnouts to where, like, say the main line is a 28-inch radius, and then the diverging is a, I don't know, 24 or 26-inch diverging. And basically, it's exactly what you are thinking. It's the same thing as talking about curve radiuses for track, or I should say radii. And so that's fairly simple. When you get into the straight turnouts, people can get confused, especially if you are new or newer to the hobby, or maybe you've just always gotten to the hobby shop. You've been in the hobby for a while, and you just always got in the hobby shop and bought this pack of Atlas ready to run turnouts, whatever. I do know some of the basic turnouts, at least back in the day, and I'm sure you can still find them nowadays. They have the turnouts that are designed to go with their snap track, and those generally have the straight leg, and then they have like it'll be marked 18-inch radius curve off of it, and so on, depending on which one you purchase, which those are very limited on your availability. Okay. What I'm talking about is when you get into the little bit more advanced turnouts, you'll hear the term number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, all the way up through, I've even seen them number 12 and 14. What does all that mean? Well, let's start with basically the easiest way to do it is a number 4 for every, I guess, foot, or well, since we're talking scales, let's say for every inch, or I'm sorry, every 4 inches of that diverging line, right, it pulls away from the main line 1 inch. Okay. So a number 4 is a very, very, it's a tight turnout. Most people that do use them because they are limited on space, and a lot of times in like a yard situation that you can use them to save you some, or gain some track length. You really don't want to be running any number or any 6-axle locomotives through it, especially the newer age, like the AC 4400s or SD 60s or bigger. They may roll through it, but they're not going to like it, and you're going to be potentially derailing all the time. And I'll explain this kind of with curve turnouts that I did on my railroad. I found out I've got a couple areas on my upper yard that my big locomotives can't go into, so I've got to kind of refigure my back plans. But anyways, now The next one up, most common one up, is a number 6, which I use a minimum of number 6 for my straight turnouts on my railroad. Number 6s is like a number 4, only so for every, instead of it being every 4 inches, it diverges 1 inch. It's every 6 inches it diverges 1 inch, meaning that the diverging track isn't at so much of an angle. It cuts the angle down. And then, just as you would expect, number 8 to number 10, number 12, the higher the number, the longer it takes for, the longer it would take for you to get diverged over. Okay, so the angle is a lot less. It's been said that number 10 to number 12s are for like high speed rail service. If you're trying to model, prototype and stuff like that. Number 6 to number 8s are going to be like most of your in town. Your 8s are going to be more common, but for us modelers like me, if I went number 8s, it would mess up my track plan. Like, I wouldn't have as long of sidings, and my yards wouldn't be able to be as long because of it takes more space, right? For that, because that turnout is a lot longer. Now, is the longer the turnouts, the better? In some cases, yes. For the bigger locomotives, it is. You can get in there, especially, and also for the longer cars. You get your big auto racks, you got your big reefers, stuff like that. 89 foot or 82 or whatever they are, box cars. They're going to navigate those longer turnouts not only better, easier, but it's going to be more prototypical. But most of us don't have 100% of the space, or, we don't have the space that we would like to have to model what we want. So we have to find a way to, crunch things down to fit everything in that we want. So that's why on the Kansas City Southern, Iowa Eastern Division, I almost said the Iowa Eastern Railroad, I chose to go with number 6s, a number 6 minimum turnout for my straight ones. I went that route because in the past, I ran on my old railroad, I ran number 6 and number 8s. And my 8s were for mainline, number 6s were for anything but mainline. So coming off of a siding, I had number 6s, and on my sidings and all that good stuff were number 6s. But my main line going into a siding, or maybe it was just a spur off of the siding, it still was a number 8. The only time it ever got a number 6 is if it wasn't directly attached to the main line. I had the space at the time for that. A number 6, however, is, I feel, a good middle ground, if you have the space for it. I guess to put it kind of in perspective, let's say you have a 4x8, you're doing like your typical oval with siding and a couple spurs. If you were to go, a lot of some of the manufacturers, they make number 6s for like the ready to run, or like the ready to run track, clip together track. I think a lot of them are kind of more of a number 5, which is not as common. You can get the in-betweens, number 5s, number 7s, number 9s. I know, like Walthers, and we'll talk about some of the manufacturers here in a bit. I know like Walthers they had number 5s. I believe Micro Engineering does the same thing. So, but if you're trying to save space, that's the way to go. If you're not worried about the space, go for the little bit longer turnouts. Yes, they may be a tad more expensive, but in the long run, they're going to be worth it, because you're going to get not only more prototypical visual, it'll look more prototypical visually, but you're going to get better performance out of that turnout with your longer cars and locomotives and stuff like that. So, as we said, we go through. So some of the manufacturers of turnouts are Atlas, Bachmann, Kato, Microengineering, Pico, Walthers, Fleischmann, and then of course there's um, other manufacturers out there that probably I didn't list that make them, but one of the big ones that they're fairly new to the I'd say probably the last 7 or 8 years, I think if I remember correctly, is Fast Tracks. Well, Fast Tracks is, so all these other ones I listed, they make them in HO, N scale, I believe some in O scale like Atlas, because they make their O scale line. And then Microengineering, I'm not sure if they do any N scale. But or Z scale or anything like that. But anyways, they make the different brands make different, they give you different varieties in the different scales, I guess is the best way to put it. So while you may find some manufacturers in one scale, you may not find them in another scale. You just have to look and find what you're looking for. Now, like I said, the Fast Tracks is kind of a thing of itself, and the fact of the one thing I didn't mention yet is okay, you can hand lay your own uh, turnouts if you got the gauges, if you've got the knowledge. There's a lot of people that do that because they can make it the way they want, and you just go and buy. You can make your own points, or you can buy the point. You can buy cast points and solder those in, and then solder your track to it, stuff like that. Now, I mentioned the Fast Tracks line, and what that is a system that they came up with of basically building your own turnout switches. Um, it gives you a hand laid turnout look. Gives you that hand laid look, but it's with almost the ease of it is with ease of having, if you use their jig, a few soldering points, and you drop in their tie kits, and they make it real simple, and it does give you a better looking turnout. Where a lot of turnout companies, if not most of them, that your diverging your rails that slide your points so far back towards the frog, a lot of them will cut that and create a hinge there at some point, just so the points move as they freely. Okay. While yes, for model railroading, that may make it somewhat easier, but the downside to that is at some point you may start developing um, electrical problems at where those points hinge. So now you start doing that. Now you're going to be drilling and soldering wires to your point rails, and and that's okay. But by soldering wires to them, now you're potentially creating issues of them moving properly and stuff. Where if you go the Fast Tracks line, you can, the way they show you in their system, easy to, and you can go to Fast Tracks, which is, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's handlaidtrack.com is their website, but they have all sorts of videos and stuff, and it looks real easy. But their system basically shows you, your point rails are tied into your frog, and so you get full, it's more prototypical. It's prototypical looking, but B, you get that full rail. There's no cuts in it on your point rails, so that way you don't have to worry about uh, any electrical issues. And there are people out there that build and sell the Fast Tracks. So like they'll order the stuff, they'll build the Fast Tracks, and then they'll sell the turnouts. The gentleman Randy D that I got mine from did an excellent job, and what I bought my turnouts from him for, um, it was the same or less what he charged me than going the big name brands. Um, I'm not here to bash anybody, any brand. So I don't want to say that they're necessarily better. I guess in my eyes, these are a better quality as far as looking and um, operational wise than the ready to run. However, the ready to run market, they have stepped up their game. I know Walthers, I used Walthers a lot on my old railroad. At that time, they were not as expensive as they are now, and I had them readily available where I lived at a hobby shop. So I used those, and I had good luck with those. On my layout now, I'm running both Atlas and the Fast Tracks, and the Atlas, I think I've had to replace one. I think I replaced one Atlas turnout already, and I replaced it with the Fast Tracks that I had Randy build me. And but outside of that, they're working fine. I have no issues with them, and they're the number 6. I can't remember what line there is because they have different lines, but it's their higher end line, I guess, if there is one for Atlas on their turnouts. And other than that, I've had pretty good luck. You know, a little bit of tweaking, but I don't care what kind of turnout you get, what brand, you're probably going to have a little bit of tweaking to get it just right for your application. You may, you may get it laid down and put in and everything, um, work out perfect. You may not have to tweak it, and that's awesome. But I know I've had a few of them on my on the Kansas City Southern here that once I got them in and started running some trains. It took some time to kind of, in a sense, develop an issue that I was able to correct, and the issue's gone now. But yeah, so thanks, Steve, for that idea for this. So yeah, you hear it, number 4s, number 6s. So you just have to figure out how much space you have and what would be the best. And we've talked about this before, is having standards for your railroad. And that's one of them, track, minimum curve radius, and turnouts. Okay, what's your minimum turnout radius? Or I shouldn't say radius, turnout size. Are you going to be fine with number 4s, or are you don't have the room for 6s, so you're going to try a number 5, that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I did mention curve turnouts, and they are kind of a breed of their own. So, my little story here, I told you I'd tell you about here. I don't remember, without going back through paperwork. Uh, I had Randy D build me, it was basically 3 curved turnouts tied together in a row to go to be able to actually, for my upper yard. I wanted to save as much space as I could, um, going into the yard. So I had a little bit longer tracks for the yard for storage of cars and movement of switching, sorting out cars and stuff. And I found out the other day, that so going into my yard, coming off the main line, you have one turnout that will take you to like the inside. I'm trying to remember, inside 3 tracks, and then but the other one will keep you on the outside too. If it's set the other way. Well, then it goes in, if you're on the outside too, then you go in to another turnout that either takes you to track 1, which is right next to the aisle, or track 2, the next one in. And then, and of course, the turnout before that, if you go to the inside 3, there is a crossover track there that I have to where you can go from number 2 to number 3. And, basically, I made it to where I simplified it the best way I could, to where you could easily get from certain tracks, to be able to get to certain parts. Well, unfortunately, I thought when I had him build these turnouts, and they're great. This has nothing to do with these turnouts. They're beautiful, amazing Fast Tracks turnouts. I couldn't be happier on the build and all that. My beef is with myself. I didn't think about this. I went on to Fast Track's website. You can go on there and you can download their templates for their turnouts and track and stuff like that. So I did that. I downloaded several different sizes and taped them together, cut them out, taped them together, laid them out, try to figure out, okay, this, configuration. Once I had it uh, figured out, I let uh, I let Randy know. I said, here, this is what I want. I had them taped together how I wanted. I took a picture, sent it to him. We discussed, And, next thing you know, as time went on, he built them for me. So here we are. I don't know. I can't even tell you how many months later, the upper level's done. The yard tracks are done. And I finally got all my switch machines in. Well, most of my switch machines in. And I have them in going into that yard. And wired up and all that stuff. And so I'm like, oh, well, I just got a big batch of, Walther's, the 72-foot reefers from our good friend over at Scott's Trains. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get out my scale trains and sound equipped ones and put them intermix them in, and we're going to do a lap around the upper level. So I figured, well, I'll start them off in that yard. Well, I grabbed 3 of my Gevos and tried backing them in, and unfortunately, I messed up on. I should have went a bigger radius, because the radiuses I have there, they are too tight. Those locomotives will not run around those curved turnouts, unfortunately. However, um, and even those 72-foot and 82-foot cars, they will not. And now, mind you, these are on I guess tracks. This was on track like 4 or 5, which is the closest to the backdrop, which means coming out of the yard, it's actually going to be the tightest curve. So I ended up taking those and putting them on. It was either track 1 or 2, which has the broadest curve, and they pulled out of the yard fine there. The locomotives work fine on those tracks. So basically, what I learned from that on the curved turnouts is, just because something works doesn't mean it's going to work in the end when it comes to turnouts. So I highly suggest, if you're planning on any kind of layout with your turnouts, to kind of, try to do a scale drawing of what you're doing, to try to figure out what size of turnouts you want to go. And it doesn't matter if you're doing curved turnouts or just regular standard straight turnouts. Figure, if you're thinking you want to go, okay, I don't want to do number 4, number 5s. I want to, like I have a minimum of number 6 for my turnouts. Um, do a scale drawing. Try to figure out if you have enough room to go to that bigger turnout, that frog size, if you will, the number 5, number 6, number 8s, whatever. And in the end, it's gonna be beneficial to you. If you try to go to the smaller one just so you can cram another, half a car into a siding or into your yard, it may not be worth it. The frustration and stuff, especially if you're planning on running some bigger locomotives in and out of that area. Now, mind you, what I just said about my upper yard, I'm not too worried, because my original plan, and still is my plan, is I'm going to be running some 4-axle switchers and 4-axle GP locomotives, like GP40s. Those will navigate around that perfectly fine. And even my SD40-2 snoot, it can go into that tighter curve going into the upper yard. It's not a big fan of it, but it'll do it. But that was my whole plan anyways in my yards, having just 4-axle locomotives, whether it be a GP40 or like a 1500 switcher or something like that. Anyway, so I'm not sweating it, and in reality, both of my yards have inbound, outbound tracks. So that's when the train, like the big locomotives, big boys, pull up and say, "Hey, we want our cars, we want to go." Then the switcher will pull the cars, or either the switcher will have the cars on that inbound, outbound tracks, or they'll pull them out and help them hook up and that kind of thing. So, anyways, so any questions on that, reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. We are going to take a break, and we will be back shortly. Are you interested in operations? Are you new to operations? Are you a seasoned operator? Consider joining the Operations Special Interest Group, or OPSIG. The OPSIG is an organization dedicated to operations from the experienced operator to the novice. Their principal purpose is to discuss, develop, and disseminate ways of operating model railroads to realistically emulate practices of the prototype. This includes sharing information on various methods of generating, moving, and controlling traffic to heighten the feeling that our models are an active and integral part of the national rail transportation network, serving shippers and consignees throughout the nation. Their membership is a tremendous resource to exchange information and ideas and to develop improved ways for hobbyists to learn the art and science of operating a railroad in a particular model railroad. Their quarterly publication, The Dispatcher's Office, is another great resource. It's loaded with articles about operations, including paperwork, planning, execution, and hosting of sessions. Annual membership is only $10 per year. Membership includes 4 issues of the Dispatcher's Office e-version, access to their Dispatcher's Office archives, an industry database to help add realism to your operations, and a directory of operating layouts across the country. If you like to operate or are just becoming aware of this exciting and growing part of the hobby, this is the place. All are welcome. You can find them at www.opsig.org. That's www.opsig. If you are enjoying our podcast, we'd like to invite you to go over to patreon.com/model railroad talk and become a premium supporter over there. All sorts of details over on the Patreon page of ours. Also, if you don't want to get into something that's a monthly thing, but you would like to, hey, I'd like to throw a little support your way, you can always head over to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk, short for Model Railroad Talk. And you can donate as much or as little as you would like without any monthly reoccurring or anything like that. So if you would like to support us, head on over to patreon.com/model railroad talk, or you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk. And to those that have supported this podcast, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We are back from break. Yes, we are. So we'll start this off. I know I've been bouncing around when I do this, and hey, so I don't forget, let's just start it off now. And that is reading another interesting fact from 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. This one comes out of the chapter Acts of Innovation and Heroism on the Rails. So, number 1, the Great Train Robbery. In 1963, a gang of robbers executed one of the most infamous heists in history, intercepting a Royal Mail train in England and making off with millions of pounds. Despite the audaciousness, had brain fart there, audaciousness of the crime, several members of the gang were eventually apprehended and brought to justice. So, another train fact from 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. If you're interested, it's written by Nathan Ward. I received that from I received that Christmas from the girlfriend's daughter. So thank you to her for that. The next thing I want to do, I guess we'll just start this with a little bit of housekeeping. And we are working on something, and I guess we are going to be doing a giveaway, finishing up the details with it, and our new friends at Broadway Limited, who support this podcast now, they're graciously giving us something to give away, and we are working with them to get that set up. So it is in the process. So be sure to keep listening to our podcast, either through or any one of the podcast deals that you listen to this podcast on. You can check, always keep up on our YouTube channel as well, and our Facebook page, because we will announce the official rules and how to enter and all that good stuff. As soon as we get it lined up, we're working on it as we speak. So hopefully here soon. if you want to be, and actually the first people that are going to get to know about it are all of our premium supporters, whether that be through Patreon or our Buy Me a Coffee page. So if you're interested and you want to be the first to know about it, head on over to patreon.com/Model Railroad Talk and become a premium supporter. Or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk, short for Model Railroad Talk. They wouldn't let me do just Model Railroad Talk. I don't know why. So, but anyways, become a premium supporter in any shape or form, and you will be the first to know. And then it'll be probably a few days after that. So as soon as we know what it's going, or what's the details are and everything, we will let you know. This is all basically we're planning for our, in a sense, 2 years of doing this podcast. And I want to thank everybody up to this point. I know in the last several months, um, the podcast, not only just the audio, but the video and stuff like that side as well, has been picking up steam. And thank you for those that have liked and shared. And just the other day, I seen in a Facebook group, somebody was asking about Model Railroad Talk or Model Railroad Podcast, and somebody had suggested this one. So thank you to those that are putting the name out. I really appreciate it. And it helps me, eh, seeing that, not only does it make me happy, but because I'm not doing this for money or anything, obviously. I mean, it's for my love of the hobby, and sharing about the hobby from just a normal guy's point of view. Um, and while no, I don't have some of the big names, like some of the other podcasts do, and that good for them. I mean, that's great that they got the support that they do. But every little step helps, and I'm excited to be um, working with Broadway Limited for this. And in fact, as soon as they get their ad copies over to me, you'll start actually hearing Broadway Limited ads. So thank you to Broadway Limited um, for working with me and supporting this podcast. So we are moving on, and the next thing. So yeah, thank you for all the shares that you guys have done and everything. So the rest of this episode, I haven't done an update recently regarding the not the Iowa Eastern Railroad, but the Kansas City Southern Iowa Eastern Division for a while. So I know some of you guys are interested in it and following it. So basically, I am at the point that I have almost all switch machines installed. And the reason why I say almost is because the last 12 pack that I got in, they're all used up. And I have I need at least two more. Well, it's cheaper for me to purchase a 12 pack than individually. So obviously, you buy in bulk, you get per item it's less. But I also have on the lower level places where I've got, um, I guess, hand throw, ground throws, whatever. That when I originally planned this layout, I wasn't going to put in switch machines. I was going to do just ground throws. But I decided as time went on that I had some spots that I knew were going to be, I guess, remote. I didn't want people reaching over a whole bunch of scenery, so I chose to convert it over. Well, I've got several turnouts on the lower level that are going to have to be converted at some point. So I need to get another box of 12 of those in, which I'm hoping to order here soon. Um, but I am excited though that I got all those in. I got all my toggle switches in on the fascia. I got everything wired up. And actually, a couple nights ago, I came home from work and got some rail cars out that I'd purchased from Scott's Trains and put them on the railroad and just to run them around. And that actually I found a couple spots on my railroad that I missed, I guess, for lack of a better term, that I realized I need to put some feeder wires down for power. Because I was running 2 locomotives in the lead and 1 middle DPU, and I would notice that the front would slow down, so the middle one would be pushing a little bit. And then once those cars got past that spot, then it was everything was fine. So I've kind of determined that I have a couple spots that I got to get feeder wires put in, so that doesn't happen. Because last thing I want to do is uh, have a DPU push a whole bunch of cars off the rails, and let alone off the layouts. So and all this is easy fix, and that's why if you watch on our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook or what have you, that's why I really haven't done any scenery yet, just in case that I have to change something. I don't think the actual layout of the track and all that I need to change, or I have to change any of it. It's more or less, I don't want to start putting scenery up and then all of a sudden in that area I have, oh, well, I've got to drill some holes for this or do this. So I gotta do some track work, and then now I'm gonna either destroy or dirty up or whatever scenery. So I am excited. I'm at the point now that uh I'm gonna be, for the next few months, couple months, be just running trains and start running a more operational aspect as well. So, and that not only will allow me to find those bad spots in my railroad that I need to, maybe I need to file down the track. Maybe it's not quite level, or where two pieces come together, or like I just said, find another spot that um, needs feeder wire for power. Um, yeah, it's also to help me. Okay, well, do I want to do car cards? Do I want to do switchless? Do I want to use JMRI? I just got to figure out how I want to go about doing my operations. While I like operations, and I'm trying to implement it on my railroad, I am also if somebody comes over and just wants to run trains, I'm good with that. And that's where I haven't quite decided on an operational scheme yet, because I want and need something very versatile. And that's where I'm kind of leaning towards the switch list, because, okay, if somebody comes over and they run trains and they want to switch cars out and stuff, fine. Then, if I have some people that want to come over and actually operate, um, it's simple as, okay, write down, here's your switch list, here's what you got to go do. So I don't know. I haven't quite decided, but that's the whole thing with model railroading is, whether you're modeling prototype or not, you still have the ability to make changes that are gonna benefit better you as or your railroad as time goes on. You don't necessarily need to be stuck and bound to um, the first thing that you start modeling or whatever. I mean, look at the Iowa Eastern Railroad. It was going to be just the Iowa Eastern Railroad. Then I came up with the backstory that the CPKC bought it, or it came when the Kansas City Southern CP merged. Well, then I decided to backdate a little bit to the Kansas, where it's mostly just Kansas City Southern. So that just shows you. I mean, granted, I'm proto freelancing. The prototype side of it is equipment, basically, but everything else is freelance. So that's the way I kind of prefer to model, just because I want to be able to, if there's something I want to see, I want to be able to do that. But I am excited. I keep wanting to put a piece of valance up in the corner here, and I keep telling myself I have to wait to do that, because if I put it up, then I'm going to have to take it back down and fight the uprights in order to get the hardboard in for the back drop in that corner. So I'm hoping probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks to be getting my hardboard and the lumber to get that finished up, and at least get my valance up. Hopefully I'll have enough vinyl to do all my valance, but if I don't, I'll figure it out, right? but I also want to get it up, the balance up, and well, at least the framework for the balance up, because then I can finish up my layout lighting and determine, do I need more here? Do I need to take away some? Do I, that kind of thing. So, and as far as equipment goes, there's really, other than I purchased 8 Walthers BNSF um, 72-foot reefers from Scott's Trains, and they're awesome. I decided, because I wasn't going to, and then I really like those reefers, partially because um, a former employer that, or a place I worked at, they actually sent me to carrier school, so I got certified to work on carrier, basically AC units that go on semis, and actually they're the same ones that go on these rail cars. And so it's kind of neat to have them on the railroad, knowing, okay, well, I went to school for this, kind of thing. So, um, but anyways, I plan on having it, and it's going to be, when this time comes, I want to have probably 3 BNSF locomotives, and it's just basically going to be a through freight. Like whenever we're operating, one person basically going to grab it, run it from the bottom to the top all the way through, and then once it hits the end, in a sense, like, has quote unquote passed through um, the yard, then we'll take the train off and put it aside, and whether it comes back out in that operating session, or maybe a few down the road as a through freight in the opposite direction, that will be determined. But I've also been working on, up to this point, that when this comes out, like I stated at the beginning, you'll I'll be in Lincoln, Nebraska when this comes out. So, but up to this point, I had also been working on um, 3D printed parts for our good friend Eric for this show that I'm at, and so and working out with him, getting ditch lights, and getting the ditch lights actually to light up and stuff like that. Basically, coming up with a module system for him. So that way, all he's basically got to do is uh, glue down the ditch lights and hook up the wires, and he's good to go, other than painting them. So I've been working on that, and our good friend Benjamin, I 3D printed some uh, piers for his railroad. I know we said last episode or the episode before, um, about modeler's license, and how he has to use a little bit of modeler's license because he doesn't have pictures of this bridge, or actually it's one bridge, but it's a couple different styles of bridges in one. He doesn't have all the pictures that one would really need to be able to verify certain things. So he does know that it has a couple bridge piers in there. So he found some, asked me if I'd get them printed. I got them printed and shipped out to him. So yeah, I've been pretty busy with that, and full-time job's been getting starting to pick back up. So busy there. I know I'm excited about the railroad. I want to get uh I really want to to start running it again, and having moving cars and whatnot. Um but as now that I have the upper yard done, I've said this before, um I definitely got to get some more cars, because my bottom yard, my Egremont yard, it's full as far as cars sake goes. And I think I've got maybe one string of cars in the upper uh, the west end yard of Montana, and I don't have any in some of my industries, where industry spurs or anything like that, or my rip track, or no, I'm sorry, not rip track, my shared track and stuff like that. So I definitely need to work on getting some more rail cars, but I just got to figure out what kind I want to get, and that'll come as I operate. I just don't want to randomly continue to buy cars that aren't going to work on my railroads. So, something to think about for you, as far as if you're in that same stage that I am. Um, you don't have enough cars, but and you want to get more, but what do you get? Operate, run it. Even if you're not going to operate your railroad normally, do some mini operating sessions of, okay, this industry calls for this kind of car. and see, and run your cars empties in, loaded out, or vice versa, and just see, do you have enough cars for that? Maybe you need to buy a few more. Maybe you have more than enough. Same with box cars or any kind of car. You'd be surprised at, you know, uh, in the past, I've had in past relationships, like on my older railroad, my ex-wife had actually said, "Well, why do you need 10 of that one car? You only need one, they're all the same." Well, I understand somebody who doesn't understand the hobby or how trains work. I can see how somebody would think that, but it's like, my response to anybody saying that, and I've had people that I've worked with in the past that have said the same thing. Why do you need, 10 of those? Why do you need so many locomotives? Why do you need, and it's like, well, do you see just one boxcar going down the road with one paint scheme? Do you see just one covered hopper? Do you see just, you know, two different locomotives? No, you see multiples. I mean, these companies will buy multiples or order multiples of a rail car because they're trying to ship freight. If they have some, that way they got freight going out, they got empty coming back, so they can, in a sense, keep that like a revolving door, you know? Um, I mean, it's like trucking companies, same thing, like I work for, if they had, we've got close to 100 trucks. Well, if we had just 100 trailers, well, what do you do when you have to drop a trailer at a shipper or receiver and wait for it to get loaded or unloaded? Well, you need more than that. A lot of times you need more than double, at least I should say, at least double for that industry or whatever, um, to be able to keep the their product flowing. You got some coming out, while they're out getting delivered, you have cars sitting there getting loaded. If and that's where it goes to, operate your railroad. And even like I said, even if you're not into operations, just you know read on Model Railroader magazine or RMC or um any website or social media, just something basic, switch list, and it will help you. Um, it will definitely help you figure out what you need as far as cars go. If especially if you're on limited, if you have limited space to even store rail cars off the railroad. So, but yeah, something to think about. Also, I would like to give a shout out to Steve L as well for he's the one that suggested us kind of talking about turnouts. He also last oh, fall, early winter sometime reached out to me and asked if I had a track plan for the now Kansas City Southern Iowa Eastern Division, and I didn't. I attempted it a few times with Exact Track or X Track CAD, and of course I've got the Atlas. I have the paid version of the Atlas one, and I just don't have the time to sit down and figure out how to use them, right? And so he offered to draw it up, and so he drew it up, and while this has been a process, he drew up the lower level, and then he drew up the upper level, and there are some things that I have to have changed off the last version once I find time to sit down and study them. But I mean, he did an excellent job up to this point, and um and I'm looking forward to actually getting a decent line drawing or picture of both the lower and the upper level for the railroad, because then it will help somebody visualize. I have done, in a sense, a line drawing for the railroad, which is basically just, in a sense, you draw your main line and then you draw little lines coming off. It's just a straight, it's not the actual shape of the railroad. It's just basically showing you the railroad is from point A to point B, and here are the spurs or sidings in between, and that's that. Whereas, like I said, Steve is drawing an actual, like, more or less what the shape of the railroad is. So I thank him for that. And actually, I'm going to be working with him to get him on the podcast here for an episode as a guest. um, because he models, or he's and an advocate for the Long Island Railroad. So I'm going to try to get him on here, and once we get some time set up after this train show. Well, train show's going on now, like I said, when you listen to this, um, but if you're interested, check out his website, trainsarefun.com. Um, and you can look around on there. He's got a lot of great information and links and everything else. And I just want to thank him because he sends me an email once, I'd say once every 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes it's constructive criticism, and other times he's just saying hi and thanks for the great show. So, Steve, when you listen to this, thank you very much. Um, I appreciate the work and the effort you've done, and your website is great. And so yeah, check out his website if you're interested, trainsarefun.com. So this episode's gonna be a little bit shorter. Unfortunately, some of them are longer, some are shorter. I am working on getting some more guests on here. Remember, keep your eyes peeled not only through the audio podcast here, and we will, once we get all the details done, after it gets for our contest, our giveaway, after it gets put out to our premium supporters, within probably a day or so after that, it will I'll do a special announcement here on audio podcasts, so that'll come out right away when that's done, and then we'll be posting it on Facebook and our YouTube channel as well. So look us up on Facebook under Model Railroad Talk. You can email us if you have any questions. Always email us. Our email's always open, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel, guess what? Yep, same thing, Model Railroad Talk. On a final note, I know that there's been some interest, a few that have used the website off and on since I've had it up for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, there hasn't been enough use of it, and and I guess for me, lack of time to be able to get on there and update it, and somewhat lack of knowledge on my part of being able to go on and set up the website like I would like to have it. I just don't have the time to learn, not necessarily coding, but learn yet another program. As you've all, for for almost a year now, you guys have dealt with me learning this Riverside program that I got forced to switch to for recording the audio podcast, and I unfortunately just don't have the time to learn that. So in March, the website is more than likely gonna be just going away, as I don't have and it's not so much the financial aspect of it as it is I just don't have the time to upkeep the website, and keep it how I want. And a little bit's the financial, because the free plan that the website is on, getting close to the maximum allowed storage, if you will. And the next one up, the first paid one, which doesn't really give you that much more storage, but it does, is not that cheap. And unfortunately, I have to pay for this Riverside on a yearly basis. I have to, I've got other subscriptions for the podcast productions and stuff that I have to pay for. So it's something's got to give at some point, unfortunately, and the website's gonna probably be what's gonna go away. So unfortunately, it is what it is. So I figured I'd let you know about that ahead of time. And also, please check out Broadway Limited, and their great lineup of locomotives and cars and all that good stuff. Their model railroad stuff. They are working with this, and I'm hoping to have somebody, actually the gentleman that I have been working with, to get them to basically sponsor this giveaway. I'm hoping to have him on within the next couple episodes as a guest. So And then from there, maybe every so often we'll have him on once a month or whatever his schedule will allow, and have him come on and just talk about trains and what Broadway Limited is up to. So it's great to have Broadway Limited imports on our side now, supporting us. So thank you to them. Also, if you have any, if you're looking for model train stuff, Scott's Trains, give them a check. Check out. Reach out to Scott over there. Is Scott Love, the number 57 at gmail.com. Reach out to him if you're looking for any trains, and you've got to reach out to him and take a look at his pipe loads. They are excellent, so check those out. Um, and also check out our good friend Eric over at the War Bonds channel, WARBONDS channel, and his 1-inch scale GP60M that he is building. Which is when this episode comes out, which is I'm going to be with him while he's debuting his locomotive, at least in the primer mode. It's been an uphill battle for him, but he's getting somewhere, and I know he's excited. So, like we always say, thank you for listening, and check us out on all of our media. Remember, till the next episode, keep your train on the tracks.